Now, Gary Trent Jr. up top against Salmon. Man in the corner. Yusuf Nurkic surrounds him. Blazers try to get the pick. Clippers keep it alive. Man dribbles by Nurk, stumbles, feeds it up top. This is going to be an open look, and McGruder makes the Blazers pay with an open through.
If you watch the Los Angeles Clippers face off against the Portland Trail Blazers in the NBA bubble today, then you may have seen something that we are not accustomed to seeing, and that's Damian Lillard choking a lead. That's not something that we typically see as NBA fans.
2-second differential between shot and game. Dame tries to work the corner. He'll pick up the foul and head to the free throw line.
Pass and give his team a lot of space to operate with.
Dame, his first free throw of this one is short. So it's a chance timeouts remaining either. Dame misses both of them. Yusuf Nurkic.
This was after the Lillard miss. Morris and Beverley reacting.
So wait, hold up. What's Patrick Beverley doing trash-talking Damian Lillard? At first, as an NBA fan, I thought this had to do with the fact that Patrick Beverley was just being a good teammate towards Paul George and was just trying to show support for his teammate that pretty much got bounced out of the first round as a result of Damian Lillard hitting a game winner in his face last year. But this rivalry runs a little bit deeper than you think. So what's going on, guys? Mike here, and today we're going to be discussing the history of Damian Lillard's beef with not only Paul George, but also Patrick Beverley, and discuss why tensions run so high between these group of players. Now, before we get to the content, guys, just make sure you leave a like, because it took a minute to make this video, and all I really need to promote my content is for you to smash that like button to help the channel grow for the YouTube algorithm. On top of that, I am giving away multiple copies of NBA 2K21 on Twitter and Instagram. And finally, I live stream on Twitch on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays at 9 p.m. Pacific time. Now that we got all of that out of the way, cue the intro.
Table there with the Blazers, a big bubble blow, 122 to 117.
Dame Patrick Beverley was pretty animated, particularly at the end of the game, waving his hand towards you and tapping his wrist. Did you see that? And if you did, how do you view that?
I didn't see it, but I heard about it. After I missed the first one, I heard them over there yelling. I just think to me, that just shows what they expect from me down the stretch. You know, they know what I do. He saw it firsthand when I was a second-year player when he was in Houston.
Let me tell you what Damian Lillard is talking about here. In the 2013 to 2014 NBA season, a second-year Damian Lillard, accompanied by players such as Nicholas Batum and LaMarcus Aldridge, were able to make it into a matchup against the Houston Rockets in the first round of the NBA playoffs. In this matchup, the Houston Rockets were heavily favored, mainly because they just came off of an offseason where they were able to poach Dwight Howard from the Los Angeles Lakers. James Harden was up and coming, and they also had key role players such as Robert Covington, Chandler Parsons, and a young second-year player who was just carving out a niche for himself in the NBA by the name of Patrick Beverley. And this is what ended up happening.
It's Lillard. He got the shot off. Lillard, good! And the Blazers win the series for the first time.
So I'm sure he has a great memory of that, which is, you know, why that drew that type of reaction from him when he saw me come up short at the end of a game. So to me, that's all that says. I didn't know what my team needed, you know, which was a failure for me that I can accept. But asking me about Patrick Beverley, who I sent him home before at the end of a game. Paul George just got sent home by me last year in the playoffs. So they know that the reason they reacting like that is because of what they expect from me, which is a sign of respect. And it just shows what I've done at a high clip more times than not. So I'm not offended by it. If anything, it should just tell you how much it hurt them to go through what I put them through in those situations previously.
The other And of course, I don't need to remind you of this play. This happened literally, well, I would say last year, but technically it's a little bit over a year because the playoffs this year are a little bit later than the playoffs last year. But Damian Lillard hits this game winner in front of Paul George's face. And also, can we get some love for Paul George, man? Because this guy gets so many game winners hit in his face that I kind of feel bad for him. And of course, this is why PG would potentially feel any animosity towards Damian Lillard at all whatsoever. But when you dive into this beef that they potentially have, there's a little bit of defensiveness that I see from Paul George's side, because there was a little bit of an exchange after this interview from Damian Lillard on Instagram, and I'm going to take you guys there right now. So if for whatever reason you weren't able to make out what Damian Lillard was saying, he was saying that he sent Patrick Beverley home before in Dame's second season in the league when he faced off against the Houston Rockets and hit that game winner. And then more recently last year, he sent Paul George home. And Paul George and Patrick Beverley took to Instagram to respond. So you can see Paul George, who is YG Trace, came out and said, "And you are getting sent home this year." But here's the one part that no one's really talking about, and it's the fact that Paul George has actually taken a very respectful route to this, saying respect. And Patrick Beverley comes in and also says Cancun on 3. Damian Lillard responds with an absolute haymaker, and this is something that just shows he's really true to his brand and true to the city of Portland, and that's by saying, "Keep switching teams, running from the grind, you boys is chumps." And that's a reference to the fact that Paul George got traded from the Indiana Pacers to join the OKC Thunder. And I know he got traded, but he demanded that trade. And when that didn't work out, he demanded a trade when he found out there was an opportunity to go to the Clippers and team up with Kawhi when it wasn't working out with Russell Westbrook. PG also demanded a trade to go to the Clippers. Now, I dug up some info that had nothing to do with his direct conversation with Damian Lillard, but Paul George responded to a fan saying that I had 2 major surgeries after both of those playoffs, and them injuries didn't come from those playoff matchups. Think about that. I was getting shot up for them games, trying to pretty much say that he wasn't 100% in his games against Damian Lillard. But Paul George most recently came out and said that Damian Lillard should respect that in his first stint with the Indiana Pacers, he had significantly more success. And he closes out by saying, "Dame, time is running out soon, G." Now, Damian Lillard has one more thing to say, but before we get to that, guys, there's one thing that I thought was very interesting, and it's the fact that Paul George and Damian Lillard are kind of in direct competition with each other in terms of the trajectory of their careers. Both of them are 30 years old. Both of them, if you ask me, for the most part, have had the same career, except Paul George has one more All-Star appearance and he has 4 All-NBA third teams. Damian Lillard has 1 All-NBA first team and 2 All-NBA second teams. We're not going to jump into the individual awards. Paul George also has an All-NBA first team award, but we're not going to jump into that. But for the most part, both of these players, in terms of team success, are in the exact same place. They have not ever made it to the NBA Finals or experienced success in the NBA Finals. Neither of them have a championship, and for both of them, time is starting to run out. The only difference between Paul George and Damian Lillard, in my opinion, is Paul George's team is considered to be a favorite to make it to the Western Conference Finals, whereas Damian Lillard's team is in a little bit of a more interesting scenario because they're not as bad as the place they have in the NBA. The reason why they've been so bad and they are in 9th place so far, as opposed to in the top 4 or top 5 of the West, is because their starting center, Jusuf Nurkic, has been out for the entire season. And if it wasn't for the fact that the NBA had to be suspended and restart in a bubble, then the Blazers would have no chance at making it to the playoffs at all this year. Now, Damian Lillard comes out and closes it out by throwing some shade in an Instagram post. And in his latest Instagram post, he captions it, "Suckers pray and pray on my downfall, but every time I hit the ground, I bounce up like a round ball." So let me know in the comment section down below. Who do you think is currently winning in this rivalry between Paul George and Damian Lillard? Do you think that And at the end of it, who do you think won this exchange between Paul George and Damian Lillard? How do you think this is going to impact both of their careers? I personally think Damian Lillard is going to potentially come out with a vengeance because you don't ever want to poke the sleeping lion. And it appears as if every time Damian Lillard has been insulted, he's always responded, and he does the best when he's under pressure, except in extenuating circumstances such as this one. Also, it's important to notice this really didn't affect the Blazers in terms of the race currently. They're currently a game behind the Memphis Grizzlies, so they would still have a play-in tournament against the Memphis Grizzlies. On top of that, the Grizzlies are kind of trending downward because they lost Jaren Jackson Jr. So I believe it would have been great for the Blazers to have won this one, but I don't think it's going to absolutely destroy them for not having won this one. But aside from that, guys, leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed the content. Comment Mike Check 1212 if you made it to the end, and make sure to check me out on my reaction channel as we're going to be reacting to some highlights in the description down below. I'm your boy, TheFlightMike, and I'm dropping the mic. Until next time.